All right, another day, another kid's story being adapted into a horror film. This time it's Mickey Mouse. This is not the first Mickey Mouse horror film I've reviewed on the channel. I also did The Mousetrap earlier this year, I want to say. I did try to watch the other Mickey Mouse horror film called Mouseboat Massacre, but I got about 5 minutes into that one and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I had watched a bunch of the Popeye the Sailor Man horror movies, and this was just like worse even than those. And I was just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. So Screamboat was one that got a theater release, and I actually had tickets to right after we had seen this movie. I think it was Parvalos, and we were gonna run over and check it out, but Kaylee wasn't feeling well, and we just I don't know. I did get the ticket, and I walked in the theater, and I watched like 5 minutes of it, and I was like, okay, this doesn't look as bad. Um, and then, obviously, of all of these that are adapting the classic children's stories into horror movies, recently we went and saw the Ugly Stepsister in theaters, and that blew me away. I thought it was phenomenal, like my favorite horror movie of the year. It was just fantastic, and I was like, oh wow, now this is how you do one of these movies. That comes to Shudder tomorrow, by the way. Definitely check it out. So I was like, all right, fine. This just released. It's $20 to buy or rent on VOD. So, know that. So let's talk about it. So this takes place in New York on the Staten Island Ferry, and there's a bunch of passengers that are riding the ferry, and Steamboat Willie gets free. Yeah, he's never called Mickey Mouse because this is the public domain for the Steamboat Willie cartoon is what is available for them to use. Now, in other adaptations of these stories, they typically just use the one character, like Popeye or Mickey or Mary Had a Little Lamb, or any of these stupid ass movies that they make. And they don't really put much thought into it other than let's take that iconography, right? Let's take that character that people know and we'll put it in the movie, and it won't really have much to do with anything pertaining to that character. It'll just be Popeye going around and killing people like in a factory or something random. Winnie the Pooh movies at least do this well, where, it's set in the Hundred Acre Wood. Christopher Robin is a character that they're going after. It actually has something to do with Winnie the Pooh. And that's one of the things that I really hate about these other movies, is that they literally just take the character. And I know they don't have the rights to everything, and that becomes a problem. But with this film, the fact that Mickey Mouse is so iconic and is so tethered to Disney in every way, even though they don't have the rights to Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast or The Little Mermaid or any of these things, they still heavily reference them in here. And they take whatever material they have that they can use and use it. And then anything that they can't use, they just do like winks and nods to them in a way where they can't really get in any kind of trouble for using them, but we as the audience knows exactly what they are. And I think that that's pretty cool. This is easily one of the better ones of these. I mean, the Ugly Stepsister is like, I wouldn't even like put that in the same category as these. The only reason I do is because it's based on Cinderella, right? And it's coming out around the same time as all of these other kids stories that are being adapted into horror films. But The Ugly Stepsister is like a completely different thing altogether, right? It's in a league of its own. It's not even remotely close to any of these types of films. So when I talk about these types of films, putting aside The Ugly Stepsister, I'm talking about like the Winnie the Pooh. I'm talking about Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. I'm talking about the Popeye movies. I'm talking about the Mickey. I'm talking about, all of these types of movies, the lower budgeted slasher type fare. Now, this one is from the director of The Mean One, another movie that he made with David Howard Thornton as the Grinch, as a killer. And if I had known that, I honestly probably wouldn't even have watched this, because I thought The Mean One was so dreadfully awful that it would have given me zero faith in this movie at all. But after having sat down for a few minutes in the theater and been like, okay, this doesn't look bad. It actually it had a good kill when I walked in. I was like, okay, there actually seems to be some effort put into this one at least. And I still feel that way, having now seen all of it. This is definitely one of the better ones of these. That's not a high bar, right? And I do want to impress upon you that, right? Like, we're not talking about, like, is this a good movie? It's more of like, is this a good movie stacked up against the other really bad child property adaptations that are currently being released, a la Winnie the Pooh, whatever. Yes, this is definitely one of the better ones. Is it good? No. But this one has way more thought put into it, a much better production value to it, right? They are using a decommissioned Staten Island ferry for the location, so the whole thing really feels like it's on a boat. It feels like, this is an actual set that is being used, that feels right. A lot of these lower budgeted things, of course, they're ultra low budget, so they don't have access to anything. And this felt like there actually was an attempt to make a film here that took place on a boat. And as far as the Steamboat Willie character goes and how it's handled in this film, they do a exposition dump of like his backstory somewhere in the film later on, and they do it in animation, and the animation style kind of somewhat matches the original Steamboat Willie cartoon, but they add in another character, which is one of those winks and nods of like, we're just gonna say part of the name, and we're not really saying the full name, so we can't get a copyright or any of that kind of stuff. Not that I don't think that that person, I don't think they really could do anything, but there's just a lot of that type of stuff. But I liked that attention to detail. I liked that they actually tried to incorporate the cartoon they had access to and changed it a bit to fit the story they're trying to tell. As far as like the story goes, there's nothing. It's just very classic slasher type of thing. There's a main girl who's running up to the Staten Island ferry late, and she has a conversation with the guy who ends up becoming like a love interest. And she says something about a birthday party or something, and he's like, I'm going to point over here, but where are you going to want to go? I honestly had no idea what was happening in that scene. I would have rewound it, but I didn't care with these types of movies. I guess maybe, to be fair, I should care a little bit more when I'm watching them, but I'm like half checked out when I throw on something so stupid like this that I literally had no idea what her like goals were, or like where she was going, or who she was, or anything. It didn't matter to the movie at all. You don't have to know anything about any of the characters at all, outside of maybe like the guy who is making his way up to captain by the deaths that are happening, and there's like a little romance going on between him and the main girl. But it all doesn't really matter. None of it matters. None of the characters are interesting, or they're the main two are okay. They're fine-ish. Like they're there. They're okay. I don't hate them. I don't love them. They're whatever. But then the birthday girls that roll up, who are clearly like Jasmine, Belle, whatever, all of Ariel. There's a lot of stand-ins, and for like Disney characters, and there are so many Disney references in here, from like characters or little inanimate objects like a tea kettle and teacup, and just all sort. I mean, you could just pick out so many different Disney references throughout this. Lines in the movie that are super obvious, pertaining to like Small World, or the theme songs from Aladdin or whatever. Songs like lyrics, as I had said. So that was fun. There was a kind of an Easter egg hunt. I definitely don't think I caught every single one of them because the movie was chock full of them, which I thought was cool. I thought it was like very self-referential, and it's also quite meta in moments. So, and as far as David Howard Thornton as Steamboat Willie, in the cartoon, all he can do is whistle, or all he does is whistle, should I say? And so that's all that this character basically can do. So I thought that kind of worked. I don't know why David keeps getting put in these roles where they like put so many prosthetics or a mask or whatever and then keep him completely silent. But he's definitely getting typecast, which has got to be somewhat frustrating for him. But honestly, I don't know. Could this have been anybody? It feels very art at times, very much like the Joker, who is constantly hurting people and laughing and snickering at their pain and all of that, except for in this he actually gets to make some noise, versus Art, who makes no noise, but it's all just kind of like physical acting of like, oh, like laughing it up. So it's pretty similar, and I feel like that character is kind of getting recycled over and over. It's just Art, like to a lesser degree. The effects on Art, now they made a choice here, which I thought was an interesting one. They made Steamboat Willie's character very small, like a foot tall, which was a interesting choice because that makes it harder to film, and it increases the budgets, the need for more money. So I thought that was an interesting choice, because in the original cartoon he's as big as the steering wheel in the boat, so he could have been full size. I mean, I know Mickey Mouse is a mouse, and making him a mouse. Now a mouse is like little, like this big, and he's like this big, so he's not mouse size. But making him small was an interesting choice. I don't think it was necessary, but it was kind of fun. As far as the kills go, there's a few kills that are quite good. I think that there's some good gore in here. A good amount of the deaths are not awesome, but there are a few that I was like, oh wow, yeah, that actually looked pretty damn good, and there was actually some decent gore throughout. So yeah, I mean, with all the references, the meta, and also I also wanted to mention this movie is like an unabashed love fest for New Yorkers. I think that people who like love New York and have lived in New York and love movies that romanticize New York will be into this. It kind of has that Sam Raimi Spider-Man kind of rah New Yorkers stand together, even despite how despicable parts of the city and shit, and this is like piss covered and whatever ship. We're still united with the state, and it's still our hometown, and we love it, right? So there's a lot of like New York love in here. So if that's something, if you're somebody from New York, and I think you'll get a lot more out of this than I have. Never been to New York, but the movie is like a love fest for New York. But yeah, it's also a love fest for the history of Disney and the creation of Mickey Mouse through Walt Disney, and like there's a lot of references to these things. So this is not just a quick throw it together in 2 minutes Popeye's Revenge bullshit kind of movie. This actually has a decent budget. It is still a very low budget, poorly acted slasher with almost zero character development. It tries to either pay homage or rip off moments from other horror movies like Friday the 13th Part 2 or something. Um, but I don't know. It's done with some heart to it. Like it felt like people were actually trying to make a really fun film. And some of the scenes are fun. So I think that this one is mildly successful. Do I think you should pay $20 to rent this right now or buy it? No. I think you should wait until it drops significantly in price or just ends up on like a Scream box or something, which it inevitably will. I think that would be the best way to support it. $20 is way too much for a movie like this. But it's not a bad time. Like if you watched any of the Popeye movies or like shit and you thought like, okay, I shouldn't say Popeye because those are terrible. But if you liked like, you know, the Winnie the Pooh movies, I put it on that level. I put it on that level. This is okay. This is okay. Would I ever watch it again? No. Did they set up a sequel? Of course. They can't fucking help themselves. There's a weird thing in here. It doesn't really matter because of this type of movie, but Steamboat Willie sustains an injury to his face, and then later he doesn't seem to have it, although the lighting's bad, but he seems to still have everything on his face. But then later in the film, he now has the injury again. It was weird. I actually had to go back and rewind it because I was like, wait, why does he still have these two things? That doesn't make sense. So I was very confused by that. It doesn't make any difference. I mean, the fucking film is stupid altogether, but it was odd. It was odd. It was just like, maybe I missed something. Maybe I saw it wrong, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was okay. It was okay for these types of movies. It was fine, and that's that. So I watched it. I got through it. It's watchable for somebody who has a like high threshold for pain. Who anybody who's like into very low budget slashers and has seen all of the aforementioned films and is like, oh, I'm willing to watch any of these as long as there's anything to get out of them, as long as they're better than fucking, you know, Mary Had a Little Lamb or something. I can assure you it's better than Mouseboat Massacre, which I shut off after 5 minutes, as I had said. That was pure trash. This is leagues better than that. So that shows you how low bar, you know, my bar is. So anyway, that's that. Screamboat. Will we get a Screamboat 2? Only time will tell. Will I watch it? Probably. Will I ever finish Mouseboat Massacre and talk about it on the channel? I hope not. God, I hope not. Anyways, let me know if you watched it, and I'll see you in the comments. Bye.